Okay, yeah, welcome to our talk. I'm just going to quickly introduce my panelists today. So I've got Julie, Devonshire, and Megan Mitchell. If you guys want to give a quick intro about what you do.
Sure. So, as Georgina said, I'm the acting director. She left us in December. Has been busily working on this conference here, but so trying to stand in for her back in Boston. But have been fell in love with supporting entrepreneurs, student entrepreneurs, about 15 years ago when I started working in another big business school in the U.S. Where I just supported kind of your typical run-of-the-mill entrepreneur. Moved on to do some corporate philanthropy where I learned to love the impact side and feel really fortunate that I landed at a place like the Legatum Center, where I can support students who are building and scaling companies where they're going to have the most impact. So that's the Legatum Center.
And I'm Julie Devonshire. I'm the director of the Entrepreneurship Institute at King's. And my job here at King's is to support the entrepreneurial mindset to grow amongst all our students, 32,000 of them across 9 faculties, all of our staff and all of our alumni. So we've got a huge audience to play to here, and it's really a lot of fun. I'm really, really passionate about entrepreneurs and how entrepreneurship can solve problems and change things for the better. I think my passion comes from the time I spent when I joined 13 years ago, the founding team of a social venture before I even knew what social entrepreneurship even was. And we decided that we were going to launch a brand of bottled water, and we were going to use all of the profits that we made, if we ever made any, to fund water pumps in sub-Saharan Africa. And it was a complete disaster for 18 months, and then it wasn't a complete disaster, which was fantastic. And in our first 5 trading years, we made £8.2 million worth of profits, all of which built water pumps in places like Malawi. And that just gave me a passion for understanding the power of entrepreneurship, and I just went on from there. I became an investor and ran the National Lottery Fund project for social entrepreneurs, where I came across many, many health entrepreneurs. I thought they were all fantastic, and I wanted to support them in some fashion to do more and more. So that's my background. Ella, you should tell the audience a bit more about you.
Yes, so as was previously mentioned, I'm a medical student, so I have just come from an exam. But before I was at King's, I was actually at Queen Mary, so over on the east side of London, and I did a medical engineering degree. So I think my interest in entrepreneurship comes from medical engineering. And when I came to King's to do medicine, I got involved with the institute because it's enabling me to bring my 2 loves together, because as a medical student, I see the problems, and as an engineer, my brain wants to solve them. So it's a good way of me kind of bridging that gap. And yes, so I work closely with the institute still. I'm a student ambassador for them. Okay, so we can crack on with the questions. So first question, I just want to talk about, obviously this panel is all about the next generation of students, the future generation of students. How important do you think they are to the future of healthcare, both in the UK, in the US, and globally? And what can we do to support them in their journeys?
So I think you and all of your peers and anyone else who's currently studying or thinking about studying health in any fashion is really, really important to health innovation and how it's going to go in the future. So many times I speak to health students at King's, and really one of the first pieces of support that I think our institute can give them is that whole introduction to entrepreneurship. So a typical conversation with a health student for the first time is, hello, would you like to join the Entrepreneurship Institute? And they'll say, entrepreneurship, I'm going to be a doctor or a nurse or a psychiatrist. Entrepreneurship, that's something to do with The Apprentice, Dragon's Den or Shark Tank. That's nothing to do with me whatsoever. So then we go on this whole journey of trying to persuade health students that actually entrepreneurial skills are so completely and utterly vital for the way they have to be health professionals in the future. So they can't just be like the health professionals who went before them. You and all your peers, I'm sorry to tell you this, you have to be different and even better. You have to be innovators, you have to be problem solvers. So I believe that one of the support mechanisms that should come from universities is simply to help students in health and in fact in all subjects to understand what entrepreneurship really could have in store for them and what it could really do to support their futures and their careers
etc. So that whole introductory piece, I think, is a great piece of support. I've been really thrilled to see in the actual syllabus, in your syllabus in medicine at King's, that there's been proposed a fantastic clinical entrepreneurship module that I've been lucky enough to work on along with colleagues from the business school here. And I think that's a really exciting step forward to think that clinical entrepreneurship can be melded into the whole medical syllabus here at King's. And also in the NHS, there's now an absolutely fantastic program that's run by Dr. Tony Young, which is called the NHS Clinical Entrepreneurship Program, and it takes 120 clinicians from any part of the NHS, any NHS clinician at all, who can come along and join this program and be supported with their entrepreneurial skill set and their ideas about how the NHS and other healthcare systems around the world can be improved, and I think that's really fantastic.
So from my perspective, I really think it's not just those medical students that are capable of and need to be a part of shaping the global health systems. The students, the Legatum fellows and alumni that pitched earlier, none of them actually have medical degrees. They come from systems dynamics, they come from business and policy, they come from you'll hear from one who has a kind of multiple degrees in electrical engineering and computer science. So I think, there's first also not just, introducing students, one, maybe the medical students to entrepreneurship, but to some of these students who know they have a passion for entrepreneurship, to give them lenses through which they can take their talents and realize opportunities that are out there to change the healthcare systems, right? So we do some things that are really meant to inspire purpose among students and bring speakers to campus who can provide them a landscape of what's happening globally or what's happening in the medical field, so that they can think about what's the research that I'm doing in whether it's something like blockchain or artificial intelligence or machine learning, and wait, how can I do something really interesting with that, whether it's here in the US or it's here in a market. He's going to support David. You can hear how much he loves having the students come support him and share ideas, because the students of today are really studying the cutting edge technologies, and what we owe them is an opportunity to understand how they can apply that and how they can really make a difference. So.
Okay, so a nice segue. Megan, if you want to tell us about a program that you're involved with at MIT that is kind of supporting these students and getting them to where they need to be.
Yeah. So, at the end of the day, what I'm most proud of are the students and alumni. But at MIT, there's more than 80 programs, centers, clubs, conferences, student groups, 80 plus that are somewhere in the innovation and entrepreneurship space. And it's big and it's messy. So our easy tagline for the Legatum Center is focused on entrepreneurship in emerging markets. And we do a variety of programs, but really our capstone, you've heard from some of our Legatum fellows, is our fellowship program. And there's some pretty fantastic components to that. I'm going to put the one that I think sparkles the most initially, I'm going to put that out front so we can put that away, and that's the funding. Because it is important. Brilliant people are all over the world. What's not equal is their access and their access to opportunity. So one of the components of the fellowship is pretty significant funding that goes to tuition and stipend and medical insurance for students. If you're at all familiar with the cost of US higher education and graduate education, this can offset a significant, almost 50% of their tuition. So allows them to graduate with less debt. Important to any entrepreneur, and when you think about the markets that these people are willing to go work in, where the dollar, their cost of their education becomes even more expensive. And then we also provide them with travel funding, because they need to take the time over their January term and some of the free time in the semesters to go to market and work with their teams that are on the ground, or work with their customers, talk to their customers, or take what they've been building in the lab and, okay, wait, does this really work in the field? How does that work? So, the funding is, I think, what catches people's eyes, but there's a whole host of wraparound services that really go with that to make the funding work. And so, we offer educational support through 4-credit seminars, where we were able to bring in some of our fantastic alumni and some fantastic entrepreneurs to serve as role models, and also not just role models, but help them understand different business models and the ups and downs and the true journey of an entrepreneur. But we also have faculty-led lectures and discussions that really bring in academic frameworks to help them really think through thoughtfully how they're constructing their business. And then we spend a lot of time on peer-to-peer learning. For the, maybe shouldn't say this with so many faculty in the room, but I really believe, particularly for entrepreneurs, they can learn as much from one another as they can learn from, an academic perspective. So all of those pieces are really important, and it's for credit, so they're also working on their ventures and a little bit of credit relief, which is helpful. And then the other two pieces are community and celebration. We spend a lot of time creating a safe environment for the fellows so that they really feel like they have 20 to 25 peers from across MIT who are really passionate about building these companies and who are in it, they're all in it together. They're not competing with one another. They're working in so many different markets. They're all around the world. So if one can learn from the other's mistakes, they are as quick to share. And that's an important part of creating this kind of safe space. And then celebration. By conferences like this, by showcasing them in events on campus, and by really helping them become role models for the next generation of students. So that's the Legatum Fellowship. There are a few here. There's an incoming Legatum Fellow. There's some current Legatum Fellows who are here as on student scholarships, and then you've heard from some of our alums. So I'm a pretty lucky person to get to work with them.
Julie, do you want to talk about yours?
Yeah. If you don't mind, I'm going to just talk about two programs
Sure.
that I'm really enjoying at King's and I think are working. So the first one is our Accelerator at King's, and I know you'll all be thinking, oh, everyone's got an accelerator these days. But we've tried to do something that really, really works, and that there is evidence that it works, and also is a bit different, and it's unique, and it uses the assets of King's, I think, in a really good way. So each year we host the 20 best ventures at King's upstairs in this building, and they live with us for a whole year, and they're from students, staff and alumni, so they're a real mixture of people. And we've tried to really think about the fact that this is a university and it's about enhancing people, it's about the people themselves. So we thought really long and hard about how we enhance them as entrepreneurial leaders, and how we should bring coaches in specifically to work with them every single week to become entrepreneurial leaders, how we should use assets that King's has. King's runs the National Defence Academy at Shrivenham near Oxford, and all military personnel who want to learn about leadership go through that academy. So what better place to take our entrepreneurs to learn about leadership and resilience than the Defence Academy, which I think is really different and really unique. And also those health ventures, we really try to make the correct connections for them so that they can find the facilities they need at King's, so that they can find the people who they need to join their advisory boards, they can find the people who can help them validate what their ideas are, etc. And then the second area of program is something we're moving into more and more, and it recognises the fact that really if you look across our audience of students, staff and alumni, the thought that someone is actually going to start a startup is quite niche. I know that's a bit sad to say in this environment, but it is quite niche still, I feel. And so we've thought more and more and more about entrepreneurial skills and skill sets and what that might mean to people's future careers. So not looking for people who are starting startups, but just looking for people who are interested in having amazing futures and amazing careers, and how we can dish up entrepreneurial skills for them so that they can go on and be more successful in their futures. So creating professionals of the future, for example, who have improved levels of resilience, who understand why diverse teams are important and how to form them, who understand how to problem solve and ideate and innovate and how to get stuff done in the way that entrepreneurs do, I believe is the most important part of what we do here at King's.
Okay. So I don't know how many of you know about the phrase multidisciplinary team, but in medicine it's a big thing. So it describes doctors and nurses and physios and dietitians and everyone working together to provide patient care. And what I want to ask you guys is, how important is it to replicate this idea of people from different backgrounds and different educational disciplines all together working towards one goal, and what barriers there are for non-healthcare and healthcare students finding each other and working together?
So I think entrepreneurship is such a brilliant space to think about diversity in all contexts, because if you're presented with teams in an entrepreneurial context, founding teams, for example, who are non-diverse, you just know from the word go that they are not going to have the diversity of thought, of background, of experience, of pathways, of ideas, etc., that they are actually going to need to get through all of those challenges that they're going to face. So having that kind of diversity amongst in entrepreneurship, as you're talking about in healthcare, is completely essential and something that we support, encourage, and always look for. And it leads to so much better outputs and outcomes. So upstairs in our Accelerator right now, we've got a fantastic entrepreneur who is a mental health nurse, and his proposition is all about how to embed all of that learning that we already all know about how fitness and diet affect mental health. But we've now introduced him to policy colleagues, so we're actually moving forward to think about how we can change policy in the UK to get some of the ideas into what goes on in our country, which I think is a fantastic example of interdisciplinarity and how it works so brilliantly. And with regards to universities, they couldn't be a better place to go and find the skills that you might be missing in a team of founders or whatever your team might be. Everyone's already divided usefully up into subject types and knowledge groups, into student societies who have like interests, etc. So it should be, in theory, really easy to reach out and find the people, the skill sets that you need to join you.
Yeah, I mean, I think no single entrepreneur can go it alone, right? And as you're thinking about some of these, particularly, in these emerging markets, one single point solution and one person bringing in one single solution is not going to create the change that is needed and the impact that's needed. We've heard a lot about the different systems and the ecosystems, and you need someone who can pull the policy lever to some degree, or understands the policy lever, who understands how to work with different groups on the ground. So, I think it's Lord Nigel said it, right? Strength is in multidisciplinary teams. So that is something that, I feel very fortunate, because as amazing and as big and as messy a place is, the culture there at MIT really allows for what I sometimes call moments of deliberate serendipity, right? Where there's so many things happening at any given time that might be just episodic events like club events or conferences and pitch sessions and idea generator dinners that are just meant to bring people from all across campus to come and just talk about what you're interested in. And what, so many students have these deep understandings of a particular field, but at the same time they're inherently curious about what other people are doing and how can what I'm working on be connected to somebody else. So there are those types of moments, but then there are actually kind of more structural things in place, like MIT is known for their hacks and the MIT Hackathons, and hacking medicine is this gigantic kind of global hackathon that is kind of put on by MIT. It's happened in 9 cities over the past year. 9 countries, 18 cities. 3,500 people have participated in these kind of hackathons, which really mean putting grand challenges in front of a group of people with similar interests but very different backgrounds, and letting them come together in their own team to spend 2 days just literally hacking away at a solution to see what comes out of that. And sometimes maybe it's the start of a venture, and sometimes maybe it's not. But it brings people together to understand who are thinking about similar problems. But then I also think it's inherent on us as educators to sometimes force people out of that comfort zone, right? And whether that's a team assignment in a class or an individual assignment to go seek someone out who's totally different than you and go talk to a faculty member or a clinician somewhere else on campus. There is a responsibility too to help push those people who are a little less comfortable, because I think when you create those multidisciplinary teams, you get the most, kind of collective wisdom is so much greater than the individual.
Okay, so we have to finish up in a couple of minutes, but just wanted to ask one more question. So obviously technology and medicine and healthcare are ever changing, and the future is obviously something none of us can predict. If you both could pick a handful of skills that you believe are the most vital to teach students now so that they are best prepared for this unknown future.
You have your great skill list, so go ahead.
I would pick 3 that I see all the time are barriers. So one is to do with adaptability, and I believe it's particularly relevant for your group of peers, for your generation in health, because the landscape is changing so much because of technology and because of a whole host of other things. I think you've all got to be really adaptable people, and that will help you to enjoy and progress in your careers a lot. And the other 2 I'd pick, which are interconnected, are this whole entrepreneurial theory about getting stuff done. There are so many barriers people place in front of themselves to solving problems and embedding new ideas, and many of them are, some of them are real and some of them are actually fictitious. So working out what's not really a barrier is just really, really interesting. And one of those barriers leads me on to my 3rd skill, which is this entrepreneurial theory about thinking and acting in a lean fashion. So you've heard something today about frugal innovation, and that theme is also, it's really, really important in the world of entrepreneurs when it comes to being lean about what it is you're doing. So many times I've sat in front of health and other entrepreneurs who'll say, okay, I've got this idea and I now need to raise £50,000 to get it off the ground. And I'm like, you don't need more than £50 to do this. Okay, this is how we're going to do this. So you just arming people with that skill to just really think around how resources operate in healthcare, I believe is going to be really important in the future.
I go back and forth between what's a skill and what's a trait, and you can improve someone's, I don't know, but anyway. So persistence, I think, is one, and that's in some ways a skill that can be built up, or a muscle that can be strengthened by creating like I said, that's kind of safe environment where it's okay to fail. You have a place where you can talk about your failures, which leads then to really instilling this curiosity and this willingness to learn, and the tools to extract the information that you're looking for, whether that's from a customer and it's through customer-driven discovery, or it's from a team and finding ways to teach people how to make the most of the people that are in front of you in that moment, whether it's through interview techniques or it's through ways that you can work with colleagues to kind of extract their knowledge or their perspectives on a challenge that you're facing. And then I think communications and storytelling doesn't sound really interesting or sexy, but I think the more people are able to communicate their passion and their value succinctly and in a way that brings people in, really helps connect people to what they're working on and their mission. And that's much easier for some people than for others. And I think particularly for doctors and for scientists, and who are very much able to, they can talk about what they know very specifically, helping them really open up for for other people to understand the value of what they're bringing and the mission and the impact that they're driving.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much. I hope everyone enjoyed that and learned a lot. I definitely did. So can we give Megan and Julie a round of applause?